What if the money anxiety keeping you up at night isn't about the numbers at all, but about something you learned watching your parents fight? In this episode, I talk with Carrie Friedberg, author of At Peace with Money, a holistic map to financial wellness. Carrie grew up in a household where all the bills were paid, but packages were hidden, and shopping trips with her mom came with weeks of worry. After spending her 20s living paycheck to paycheck on a teacher's salary, partying in San Francisco while drowning in credit card debt and constant anxiety, Carrie discovered that budgets and spreadsheets weren't enough. She needed the combination of emotional support and practical education that only a money coach could provide. Carrie shares how tracking every dollar for 90 days, doing a 30-day cash-only diet, and learning to slow down transformed not just her bank account, but her self-esteem and every relationship in her life. If you've ever felt like everyone else has money figured out while you're quietly drowning, this conversation will show you there's a different way. Listen in.
Welcome to Making Change with Your Money, a podcast that highlights the stories and strategies of women who experienced a big life transition and overcame challenges as they redefined financial success for themselves. Now here's your host, certified financial planner, Laura Rotter.
Welcome, Carrie, to the Making Change with Your Money podcast.
Laura, thanks so much for having me.
And I am looking forward to seeing where this conversation takes us. I'll start with the question, Carrie, what was money like in your family growing up?
Well, we had comforts like all the bills were paid and my mom cooked dinner every night. And we also enjoyed a yearly vacation. I attended private school, so there was financial security, definitely. And my dad worked. He was the breadwinner. He worked a lot as a corporate attorney. My mom was a homemaker and consummate volunteer. And what I remember mostly about money growing up was a lot of fighting and conflict. It seemed like my parents did not align on spending. So I was one of three kids. It was a very busy household between the education and all the sports and other activities. And so there was a tremendous outflow in a family of six plus a dog. And I remember uh, just disagreements. And when my mom wanted to take me shopping and buy me clothes, it was a big ordeal. We were hiding packages. I know she was
Oh.
putting on a front with him and lying, but then the truth would eventually come out since he earned the money and paid the bills on the credit card statement. And so there was this kind of swirling confusion and stress.
Now I can even sense it in my body as you describe it, how this sort of underlying anxiety from the misalignment between your parents. Um, Carrie, I'm always curious, like, where were you in the birth order?
I was third.
Ah, so you were the youngest.
I was the youngest, but I was definitely the older sister of my younger brother. So there were kind of two sets of us. Yeah,
Um, so you said you were third, but there were three kids.
four kids total. So a
Oh,
third of
four
four.
kids.
Mhm.
Ah, third of four. Okay. And were there other sisters? Were you the,
Yes, I had an older sister who was 5 years older than me,
oh wow.
and an older brother who was 8 years older. So they were kind of a set. And
Yeah.
then there was a 5 year break, and then my younger brother and I.
And do you have a sense of how you were all impacted by this misalignment in your home? I mean, I often find that though we have the same parents, where or each of us have a sense of our parents differently, just given where they were, what's going on in their lives when each of you were born. Given what
I
you do,
think
I'm assuming you've thought about this a bit.
Oh, I definitely think my parents changed and grew up a lot during their journey of parenthood of young kids. They got married in their early 20s and had my older brother within a few years. And I know myself now that I'm 50 years old and have my own children, and so I have some experience and perspective on the matter that people do continuously grow and change, and that birth order is impacted. My parents had very much a kind of 1950s marriage where he worked, she spent and raised the kids. And my dad really looked to his firstborn, who was also his son, um, as his go-to person around finances. And now, some 60 years later, that dynamic still exists, actually.
Interesting.
And I think my older brother is my father's primary confidant around money, and they have a lot of common values and lifestyle, choices, and that's been fascinating to watch. I think my sister and I both, somehow it was ingrained. I eventually learned. I kicked and struggled around this for a while, which is part of my own story of becoming a money coach. But um, my sister and I have worked really hard to stand on our own 2 feet and be independent, and self-supporting, and all of that. I didn't get married until I was 38. My sister also got married in her early 20s. So, also, your own age at the time of all of these rites of passage matters as well.
Yes.
Um, and then my brothers have had their own interesting kind of sordid relationship with money. And so everyone has found their way. um, I think I am quite sensitive. I'm a Cancer in astrology. So I took on a lot of the conflict and I worried about it and I carried it around. And so any, say, annual shopping adventure with my mom to buy back to school clothes or something like that was fraught for weeks of like worry and anticipation. And even after I moved away, when I came home and she wanted to go shopping together, there were times when I outright refused. It was just too difficult. And then eventually I learned to say, how long are we going to go for? What is the budget? Like, kind of, what is the intention and purpose? And I want to spend time with you too. And I put some limits and boundaries on it to help it feel more functional for me. And my mom has since passed, so it's not an ongoing thing at this stage of my life. But it was a difficult recurring challenge.
Thank you for sharing that. Carrie, I can sense that it's something that even now you can feel how
Hmm.
fraught these shopping dates with your mom were, and almost in some ways, right, you became at least in that financial relationship, the limit setter, um,
Did.
if just to calm your own nervous system around it.
Yes.
So, Carrie, this is a show about life transitions, which inevitably lead to financial transition. So, can you share with our listeners a life transition that had an impact on you?
Sure, there have been so many. Let's see. I think For me, the one that stands out the most and has me talking with you today and sitting here in this moment is growing up around money and learning how to be an adult around money. So I already alluded to the fact that when I was in my 20s, I was partying and single and living in San Francisco and going to see live music and out for dinners and traveling and exploring, the wine country and Tahoe, and not well because I was living on a teacher's salary. And therein lied the conflict.
Yes.
I had a lot of fun, but I didn't manage my cash flow at all. I didn't know how to do that or what that meant. It sounded like a different language when people said just write a budget and stick to it. That like flatlined me. I couldn't do it. And so for me, I finally realized I needed help. I had gotten very healthy and physically strong on the yoga mat, and that had been its own transformation, like I said, physically, but also emotionally and spiritually. And it was really the yoga practice that led me to the aha moment that there had to be a different way. There had to be a better way. I couldn't continue living like this, which was with credit card debt and constant anxiety in my solar plexus. And I was overly emotional about money. It was very difficult to talk about it. I just would kind of check out and cry all the time. And made a decision to educate myself. I just said, this is it. I'm drawing the line in the sand. I'm taking a right turn. And I started reading books and series of books. I hired a financial therapist for 6 months, which was very cathartic around the family dynamic and the modeling that I had seen and received. And I watched webinars and hired someone off of Craigslist to teach me Quicken. I was really motivated. I was starting to track my money, but things would last about 6 months and then I would kind of fall off the habit again. And it wasn't until I was still feeling like at square one, though there was some momentum in this house of money, that a friend suggested I hire a money coach. And I had heard of life coaching, but this was back in the day before there were coaches for everything. And I really didn't know what that was. But for me, it was this special combination of emotional support in addition to practical empowerment and education. This person literally taught me steps 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. This is how you need to organize your cash flow. This is what we're going to do this week. It was broken down into very bite-sized pieces, which is really what I needed. And she was also someone that I could celebrate successes with and share challenges and breakdowns with. And so I worked with this person consistently for 2 years, and it doesn't have to take
Wow.
that long for people these days, but it was profoundly transformative. Everything in my life changed. From where I lived, I was able to move into a nicer, more desirable apartment. I was able to turn in the car I was embarrassed to drive and lease a new one. I was able to build meaningful savings for the first time in my life. But mostly what changed was how I felt about myself and my self-esteem. I was able to show up for conversations about money, negotiating my annual teaching contract at work in a different way and ask for more. I mean, I had a graduate degree by then, but I had never kind of shown up for myself. I was able to talk with romantic partners and roommates about money, negotiating things and dividing evenly and requesting paybacks and even in my family of origin, I for the first time, and this was around age 30, so a little bit later than other people kind of got it, I think, but I was able to participate in family conversations and meetings about money or ask questions. And um, so it felt amazing. And that change was so profound that I decided to do the same counselor training program that my own coach had done. So that's when after completing that, that's when I launched my private practice as the SF Money Coach.
Wow, what a great story. I mean, what I'm hearing, Carrie, and really not surprisingly, is that when you build a muscle, when you built your muscle around understanding and planning your finances, it affected every area of your life. It affected your your self-worth.
It really did.
That
Yes.
translated. Um, Carrie, you mentioned, and not that you have to go into great detail, but you said that there were several steps. The first one you mentioned was cash flow, understanding your spending. But can you share with our listeners what the steps might be to start getting your financial house in order?
Absolutely. So the very first one, kind of level one of financial wellness, is tracking the outflow specifically. So as we all know, there are many opportunities to spend money on a daily basis.
Oh my God.
So money goes,
Much more, right, than like certainly when I
yes,
was growing up. Like you could be on your phone, you're scrolling Instagram, and there's an ad and you hit it and your credit card is, I mean, it's crazy how easy it is to spend money nowadays.
exactly. And so the power of tracking for at least 90 days, if not an entire year, is the foundation, I think, from which everything is possible. So you need a system for that. Back in the day, I literally hand wrote what I was spending money on and recording the paycheck and the transfers to savings. And I did that, but I don't make my clients do that anymore. There's an app for that, and there's a lot of
Yes.
good technology to lean on. And if you're someone that won't do it for yourself, can't do it, whatever the reasons are, you can outsource that to a bookkeeper. I would say someone that is going to provide a personal touch and get to know your spending and your story and what certain things are. It can't be fully automated. I know everyone wants to outsource it, but I think a truly healthy and sustainable relationship with money comes from tending the garden of your finances and remaining connected. So from there, kind of step two, level two of financial wellness is creating a spending plan and giving your money purpose. That's a budget. So you'd start with the upcoming month and setting all of your categories and those can be large categories, like home could be one, or it could be broken down into utilities and rent or mortgage and household supplies. So it depends how thick the money fog is, how much detail you need in the tracking and budgeting, and also kind of how tight cash flow is. When I started, I really needed to know that I had $25 for taxis in a month, and that was it. And it was really precise like that. And once you get a monthly spending plan established, and there is some customizing that has to happen every month because, again, as much as we would like to have budgeting on autopilot, there really are no 2 months alike, depending on the season and curveballs that life throws at you, and all the other variations, health things that come up, and home things. And so there's some custom fine tuning each month. And then I think it's really powerful also to plan ahead for 1 year out. You know, we're in the holiday season right now, coming up on forecasting and creating a vision and a plan for the upcoming year can also be tremendously useful to people. And I think about 75% of Americans don't do this. So it takes something, and something may have to give. in order to have the time and energy and accountability to getting some of these steps done. So that's a sample of the first few steps.
Thank you. Do you have any rules of thumb? I mean, and I guess as I'm asking, I'll share that I do, but like how one should break up their spending each month, percentages or like that.
Don't use percentages. I mean, I know people like to do that and they are very handy. Um, I think that everyone has a story around money and goals for that time in their life, specific things they want to be saving for, um, debt and liabilities that they are targeting to pay down, whether it's student loans or credit card debt or things like that. And so, um, because of those things, in addition to other complicating factors like supporting family members and things like that, and then if you're in a partnership, you throw that into the mix, and there are all these nuances to consider. And so, I don't use formulas or percentages. Um, but I think it's really important for people to consider what their comfortable cushion is in their checking account and savings accounts. And so building kind of up from there in terms of the cash flow, just for on the emotional level, so that you don't get into that kind of scarcity panic zone. For some people, it might be like under $1,000 or and then that's where mistakes happen and there's kind of underlying stress. And so that's that's one location where we build a spending plan from.
Thank you. I'm curious what you're comfortable sharing when you describe starting, you you I don't know how to put this, felt comfortable with a certain lifestyle. I mean, right, some of us in order to feel secure need to feed ourselves with activities, as you said, going to concerts, and you described a lifestyle where clearly what was going out, was more than what was coming in. So how did you gradually change that? Like, what was your why? And also maybe, as close to dollars and cents, what did you decide
Mhm.
you were setting aside each week? Because when I hear it, it sounds like it would be very difficult to do unless you had a very strong why.
Yes. Um, well, the why was that I couldn't continue living the way I was living. It was too stressful, the constant anxiety. I felt pretty dysfunctional in this area of money that appeared to be very easy, calm, and even comforting for other people. And I just thought, oh my God, I got bad wiring, or like, what is happening here? I knew there was some money fog to clear and that I didn't have to do it alone. I'm very happy that I hired someone to help me. I mean, it came to that. It seems strange to think when you need help with your money that it to pay
You're gonna
someone
pay-
for
Yes,
it feels extravagant
yes.
or whatever. But um for me, that I needed the hand holding and the one-on-one support. And so I learned from this person that this process of becoming financially healthy is not about cutting and slashing your lifestyle. We're not going to batten down the hatches and stay home for the next 2 years. Okay. Like that was absolutely not going to happen. I knew for me at the time, I needed to continue attending yoga classes. Back then, that was like $15 a time, or I'd buy a 10 class pass for like $13 a class. And so um, I established a foundation of self care as number one. Now, I would have loved to also continue having monthly massages. That was something I enjoyed. I had a really good friend who was an extraordinary masseuse. I loved spending time with her and getting taken care of like that. And I mean, my want list to this day is pretty long, and I have kind of idea for you, you know. And these days it's around home improvement, ways we can renovate and things like that. But um, I learned to have more integration time between my different self-care experiences. Throw in nails, for example, like getting a manicure, pedicure. So it was like, okay, 1 month I'll get my nails done, the next month I'll get a massage. These are luxury problems. Like, I totally acknowledge that. But for me, it was a big deal to not have everything at once. So I started to let go of the feast or famine kind of response to decisions around money. I had been used to being quite impulsive and just like spend, spend, spend. And back in the day, it was swipe your card and deal with it later. And um, so slowing down helped tremendously. Also, tracking my outflow and being very conscious with the self accountability of I'm making this decision to spend this money and I'm going to see it again later when I come home and record my receipts, or when I stop in this moment at Whole Foods and write down how much I spent for this tiny bag or whatever. And so the kind of exposure therapy of having a system and accountability to myself, which I developed over time. At first it was accountability to my coach, and she was very gentle and loving with um, my process. I mean, it took me at least 6 months to create a budget, a spending plan that was in the green. Like, I was really off. I was really in the imbalance. It was hard to make changes, but it didn't feel like sacrifice, because I was very motivated to get out of credit card debt and stop withdrawing from retirement to pay my bills. Um, I I really wanted to feel good and well and confident and healthy around money. Like, I was willing to do anything. I had tried all of the things that I had shared. So I'd already invested a lot of time and energy and now money into creating this balance. And so I took her suggestions. I would try them on. I did a 30-day cash only diet, which was very difficult, like getting out of the car and going inside to pay $20 for pump number 4 and going back to get the change, and like, it was. But that's what an example of what I needed to do
Yes.
to slow down, to be in the present, to experience more gratitude and integration for all of the blessings that I already had, to wear the clothes that were in my closet rather than constant consumption, those types of things.
You are not the sum of your earnings. You are the sum of your yearnings. If you're ready to use wealth to create more freedom and flexibility, let's align your finances with what matters most. Together, we'll build a plan that balances your scarce resources of energy, time, and money, so you move forward with clarity, confidence, and less stress towards a life of true abundance. Learn more at www.trueabundanceadvisors.com and schedule a short conversation. Thank you. And I assume you also set aside, I'm curious how quickly you were able to pay off the credit card debt. That seems like something that you maybe do little by little, or while building an emergency fund. How does one do that?
It was kind of one I would call those major projects, one major project a year. Um, I I did make a decision to withdraw from an investment account to pay off the credit card debt
Mm.
because I had a new game plan. Um, because I was budgeting and planning with my accountability partner, I knew I wasn't going to fall into the same cycle again. That was the necessary change for the clean slate. And I went through the trouble of closing like 8 different store cards and all of that kind of financial housekeeping, which was all part of it. And then once that was cleared up, it took a year or something like that. It was a while ago now. Then I had a little bit more cash every month, not to spend and go out more, but I had like 6 nieces and nephews, and I always thought I would be the kind of aunt that would treat them to birthday presents and things like that. I had tried and failed at that many, many times, and withdrew the money from their savings account. Not that they knew about it. It was going to be like a surprise, and spend it on myself anyway. So I established a couple different cash savings accounts. One for, like you mentioned, more of the safety net. For me, I think of that as the income backup account. If something happened and I lost my job or there was another interruption of income, and then I also had a more immediate savings account for those periodics and non-monthly expenses like traveling home to Michigan or a ski weekend and things like that. So there was another really powerful tool that I use with my clients too, a periodic expenses calendar where you map out all of those anticipated bigger ticket items for an entire year, so you can actually calculate divided by 12 how much you should be putting aside every month in advance. This was miraculous. Uh, so that when those expenses come up, you can use your own savings rather than a credit card. And so that was hugely transformative and like the number one game changing approach. So that's more of a revolving door savings account and money that's meant to be spent, but 2 savings accounts. So I was able over the next several years. And by the way, I must mention that I also took on second, third, and fourth side hustles. I was tutoring and babysitting and coaching and leading outdoor education
Wow.
trips in the summer. So I was really, really hustling and working very, very hard and long hours,
Yes.
because that is one solution to a shortfall is to increase income. And I knew that. And so I was trying that, and it was still pretty tight, and it still took many months to create a budget that was balanced. But I did eventually get there. And then I was able to save up enough money to take a trip of a lifetime to Southeast Asia. So I had studied religion, specifically Buddhism and other Eastern religions, as an undergrad, and I had never been to Asia. But about 10 years after graduating from college, well, by then it was like 13 years, um, I was able to save enough money to take myself to Southeast Asia, which is relatively inexpensive compared to San Francisco. So the dollar stretched very far. You could live on, eat, and have housing for like under $10 a day. I mean, I was doing the backpacking thing, and I made choices for safety, of course, and things like that, but it was the most extraordinary trip and a spiritual walkabout of sorts. And I was doing a lot of yoga and meditation, and I immersed myself in the incredible culture over there in Thailand and Vietnam and on and on. And so um that was one true reward for doing all of the hard work of working with the money, reading all the books, and setting out on that path to educate myself. So it really worked.
I love that you're not making it necessarily sound easy, Carrie, that you're really describing a thoughtful and time-intensive project, that it took a while for things to fall into place. And as you said, and you had a bunch of side hustles to grow the income side of
Hmm.
the profit and loss statement, if you will. And
Yes.
because I don't want our listeners to think that, like, oh, I'll just set my mind to it and, 2 months later everything will be fine. It really takes a commitment.
100%. Yes. I know we're all used to instant gratification and ordering something that's delivered the same day and this type of thing. But I think real financial wellness and financial health is a long game, and it's more of the marathon mentality and something we have to face and embrace for the rest of our lives. And so it's really worth establishing good systems with support as needed, and like slow and steady wins the race kind of approach. There is no overnight quick fix.
Yes, and it sounds like other practices you and I share, yoga and meditation. It's a practice. I actually read something came into my inbox today, like, why do we think if we, want six-pack abs or that we know isn't going to be overnight, but yet, like, we think a meditation practice, I'll meditate once or twice and then I'll have peace for the rest of my life. So these are all practices, and being on top of your finances is a practice. So
Yes.
can you share where you are with your money coaching practice now? And also, I know you to be about to publish a book. So, tell us a bit about that as well.
Yes. So I've worked with people in all different phases of their life. As my life has changed and expanded, it was kind of like the moment I got engaged to be married, a bunch of couples started calling me.
Just
And these days, I am living myself in a multi-generational home. So I live with my mother-in-law and with my two kids and my husband. And we've been doing this for 10 years. And that's an interesting financial project that we all work on together and have had to change and edit and negotiate various things over all of these years. And so that's quite interesting. And as history often indicates current happenings, I'm working with a lot of adult children, and where these days in my coaching practice, where their parents are hiring me to educate their 30 and 40-year olds, um, who, similar to my story, kind of never got the financial literacy, or money has been a struggle, or they've made very expensive mistakes, or this and that. And so I'm doing these days some more intervention work, and I love the multi-generational client relationships, because even if the parent is, say, more established or someone of means, and they're not happy with their adult child's kind of behavior or money habits, I know that my work with the adult children is also affecting them. But the satisfaction of helping them mend their relationship and rebuild the bridge of trust and accountability, and at the end of the day, giving that young adult or adult child the skills and tools and accountability and support and empowerment that they need to have a sustainable and healthy relationship with money is so satisfying. And I love that work so much. So that's what I'm doing, but I also have a full-time job. So I have a very limited coaching practice at this time, but I am taking new clients at the same time. Um, and then I'm very excited to share about my book. This is At Peace with Money. It's available now for pre-order. It comes out on January 20th, 2026. You can buy it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. This is the uh, um what's the word? It's everything I've ever learned and more
Mm.
about personal finance. It's a grand summary of my personal journey that with a lot of color and fascinating anonymous stories from many clients I've taught and guided through this process who live all over the world. And so there are a lot of interesting stories in there, and as well as all the practical stuff around the ABCs and one, two, threes of personal finance and how like the exact steps to follow and
Hmm.
how to make it work so that you too can feel happy and confident about money.
And I love for those of you who are listening and didn't see Carrie show you the cover, there's a lotus flower on the cover. So it does have a provide a sense of peace, like in the name. I'm just curious, are there any, did you weave any of your background in mindfulness or yoga into it?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. It's all um interwoven. Absolutely. There is a money affirmation exercise. There's a whole chapter dedicated to how to relax about money. Um, yeah, it's the best of all of the practices that I teach and offer clients and that I use myself, and that have worked for me are in there. It's well, the subtitle is A Holistic Roadmap to Financial Wellness. So yes, yes, and yes.
Love it, love it. And I will, of course, provide a link in the show notes to where I guess you could pre-order. Um,
Mhm.
on. Carrie, as we get close to the end of the conversation, I always like to ask, how has your definition of success shifted over the years and perhaps even financial success?
Oh, well, let's see. I mean, now that I'm a mom, so my kids are 7 and 11. They're a little bit older now. I would say I'm officially out of the weeds, as they say, but
Sorta.
if
No.
my, I mean, ish. Uh,
Ish.
Actually, just today, I gave my daughter her green light debit card, and she went Christmas shopping with a friend and the friend's mom up in San Francisco on 24th Street in Noe Valley. So that was a first. Like, I'm very curious to see and hear how that went and what she comes home with. So I was going to say, if my kids eat a good dinner and go to bed on time, that is my daily success. But if I put parenting and motherhood aside for a moment, I would say if I feel at peace, if I feel like I'm giving love out in the world to my husband, to my mother-in-law, to my clients, if I'm practicing right action in terms of how I interact with nature, and again, that kind of slow and steady ebb and flow of life. And if I feel spiritually fit and like consistent and positive mental health, physical health, then I'm winning. And I feel really, really successful in my life. And this is all on top of being in the green with no credit card debt
Mm.
and maintaining that comfortable cushion in what's now my joint checking account with my husband. And I still track my finances. I'm 50 years old now, and I don't do it by hand in a checkbook register, but about once a week, I update Quicken for the Mac is my system, and I'm still tracking my outflow. And that does provide me with confidence and some sense of control in this crazy world. So,
That totally resonates with me. I happen to use a system called Tiller, and I often think that I started a financial planning practice to teach what I needed to learn because I really, in my previous career, for better or for worse, there was always money there. So I just spent. And it's like important to me to know like this is what's going out each week. And also to sort of look ahead and say, okay, when I'm no longer working, how much would I be able to spend? And say, okay, that's in line with what I'm spending now.
yes.
So it gives me comfort that my husband and I are on the right track and not sure what we've passed along to our kids, but we'll see.
Oh, that's beautiful, Laura.
Um, Carrie, is there anything else you want to be sure to share before we end our conversation?
Well, just such gratitude for meeting you and you taking that kind of leap of faith in saying yes to get to know me and now having this conversation. And I'm receiving your support, and I'm so grateful for that. And I know I feel like there are so many people in the world that need help with their money. And so I love meeting other coaches and advisors like you so that um, I know we're all on the same team, and we can work together in the future as needed. And that there are lots of people out there who need help and support. And so that's the big message is we were never meant to do this life thing by ourselves, regardless of our circumstances. I know that for me, that was the very first breakthrough, probably from receiving adjustments on the yoga mat from my instructor. It's like, oh, you mean I can like sit in child's pose into my hips that way? Like applying that kind of surrender into our personal finances, I think will carry us very far in this life.
I love that. Thank you so much for being my guest, Carrie.
Thank you so much, Laura. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Making Change with Your Money. Certified financial planner Laura Rotter specializes in helping people just like you organize, clarify, and invest their money in order to support a life of purpose and meaning. Go to www.trueabundanceadvisors.com/workbook for a free resource to help you on your journey. Disclaimer, please remember that the information shared by this podcast does not constitute accounting, legal, tax, investment, or financial advice. It's for information purposes only. You should seek appropriate professional advice for your specific information.